Hello, this video is being made for the Natural Solutions Foundation. NSF is a non-governmental organization, an NGO, which is recognized internationally. The president of our foundation is Major General Albert Stubblebine, U.S. Army retired, and our medical director is Rima E. Lebo, MD. My name is Ralph Fusatola. I'm a trustee and counsel for the foundation. I've practiced law in the United States for 34 years, and the purpose of this video is to explain to you the Natural Solutions Foundation Codex 2-step. Now, we need to start, I guess, with what is Codex. Codex Alimentarius, the World Food Code, is an agency of the United Nations. It was founded over 4 decades ago by the WHO, the World Health Organization, and the FAO, the Food and Agricultural Organization. These two primary organs of the United Nations came together and formed Codex. When we refer to the word Codex, we're referring both to the Codex Alimentarius Commission, the governing body, and its various committees, and to the body of documents which the organization has produced, which is known also as Codex. That body of documents consists of two types of documents. On one hand, there are standards which define the nature of various foods for the international food trade. And on the other hand, there are various guidelines, such as the vitamin and mineral guideline, which attempt to regulate the food trade internationally and the content and claims, for example, that are made about dietary supplements. Now, the Codex statute provides that its primary concern is food safety, and secondary concern is promoting international food trade. Many health-conscious countries, however, have come to the conclusion that their traditional foods and their traditional remedies need to be protected from the harmonizing effect of Codex regulations. Now, how are Codex rules enforced? The World Trade Organization, the WTO, has over the years accepted Codex standards as what are called presumptive evidence of the rules of trade between countries. Several times in its history, the WTO was asked to make the Codex standards the sole determining factor in those trade disputes, and it has refused to do so. Now, under Codex's own statute, Codex guidelines are merely advisory. Nations are permitted to have their own standards and guidelines. And that is where the Codex 2-step comes in. Since we know from the WTO rules that Codex standards are just presumptive evidence and are not finally determinative, a nation can opt out of that system in order to protect its traditional foods and traditional remedies. So the Codex 2-step is a legal strategy that NSF has developed to help health-friendly nations, and here's what it does. Step number 1. The country adopts its own food and health guideline, and this guideline may be at variance with the Codex guideline. It may, for example, be much stricter on the issue of toxins in the food supply. It may be much stricter on the issue of genetically modified foods. It may require, for example, that people who use genetically modified ingredients put that on the label. It may permit, for example, companies that refuse to use genetically modified ingredients to put that on the label as well, so people can make an informed choice. First step is to adopt the guideline. Second step is to adopt a national law that implements that guideline on a science-based status. The Natural Solutions Foundation has prepared models for you to use. We've prepared a model vitamin and mineral guideline, and we have prepared a model food and health statute that implements that guideline. Both of those documents can be found in the Codex book, which is available through the Natural Solutions Foundation. The Codex book can be obtained by going to the Natural Solutions Foundation website, which is www.nslf.org. globalhealthfreedom.org. You can also contact the Foundation directly by emailing Dr. Labo. Her email address is dr.labo, L-A-I-B-O-W, @gmail.com. Now, let me go back and explain in more detail the Codex two-step. The first step in the Codex two-step process is for a country to adopt its own guidelines with regard to food and health. Now, a number of countries may be adopting similar guidelines that are pro-health and that seek to allow the country to protect its traditional foodstuffs and traditional remedies. That's the first step. The second step is to adopt your own statute, your own law that implements that guideline. Once these two have been adopted, if there is a trade dispute, and it's only through trade disputes that Codex standards really come into play and become enforced. If there is a trade dispute before the World Trade Organization, the normal standard of the World Trade Organization is that a Codex standard or a guideline is the presumptive evidence between the parties. However, when one of the parties has adopted its own guidelines based on science, then there is no such presumption. And the World Trade Organization, in resolving the dispute, will have to not look at the presumption, but rather will have to look at the science. And a country will be judged on its own standards. And that is exactly what the Codex two-step permits. It permits countries to vary from international harmonization in such areas as the toxins that are allowed in the food supply, such the ingredients that are considered organic, for example, or ingredients that are considered genetically modified. Now, the Natural Solutions Foundation strongly believes in individual bioidentity. That is, as individuals, we have our own needs for foods and remedies, and we want to preserve that as much as possible by helping nations that are health conscious develop approaches to the international harmonization that permit them to continue to support their own traditional foods and traditional remedies. We do this through the Codex two-step, and you can learn a good deal more about that if you go to www.globalhealthfreedom.org. This has been Ralph Fusatola, the Trustee and Counsel for the Natural Solutions Foundation, and I thank you for paying attention and for your time.